welcome to episode 31 of The Smallest Thing. I'm Lisa Manterfield. I hope I didn't leave you on too much of a cliffhanger last week. Just in case, I'm going to skip the small talk today and jump right in to find out what happens to Em. But stick around afterwards because, in the spirit of Halloween, I want to tell you a few more true stories about the real plague village of Eyam. Welcome to the serialized audiobook, The Smallest Thing, written by Lisa Manterfield, read for you by Charlie Sanderson.
Chapter 33, Sunday, August the 28th. My hand rests on my stomach, its weight pressing on my physical body, but it's as if I'm touching something else that isn't me. My body is a shell, a box, like a coffin, and I am no more than a speck of light inside it. I no longer live within my body. I'm lost. It's not exactly how I feel. Small, insignificant, that's it. I'm trapped inside this vast box, and I'm looking for a way towards somewhere safe. My eyes ache in their sockets, and the soft parts of me pull away from the structural parts. My bones are laid out like a skeleton, unearthed by an archaeologist and arranged for display. There's nothing connecting them, holding them together, and there's nothing to make them move. The parts of me are separate, together in the same space, but not related to one another. I am disconnected. My eyelids lay heavy over my eyes, and it takes my concentrated effort to lift them. At first, I see a slit of hazy grey. Light. I search for something solid to focus on, but there is nothing. Everything is a blur. The haze is suffocating, as if I've woken up in a cloud. My chest tightens, pressing me deeper into the clouds. I can't breathe. I don't know where I am. There are sounds. Voices. A shadow moves in the distance. Something passes across my face. Air. Beneath my fingers I am aware of a sensation, fabric, the coolness of a sheet. I don't know where I am, but I know I am alive. I close my eyes, secure in this knowledge. The next time, my eyes open of their own accord. It's so bright. White. Everywhere is white. I blink, and colours unbend and appear from the brightness. Cream, green, brown, all muted. A draped ceiling, lights, blue bedding, a silver stand, a clear bag, tubes. A face. I look again. It is a face. A real face. Dark skin, friendly eyes. The creases of a smile folding behind the edges of a simple paper mask. Welcome back, Emmett. The voice is pure and clear, like an angel's voice, I think. I'm not imagining this. I'm here. Bit of ice, the voice says. A woman's voice. I try to move my head. It must have worked because she eases me up and places something cool on my lips. I open them and let the chill of an ice chip slide into my mouth. I press my tongue against it until it melts and cool liquid runs into my throat. Sweet relief. I open my mouth again like a performing seal, and the angel drops in another chip. Rest now, she says, and moves away. For once I do as I'm told. I let my eyes fall closed and drift back to sleep. The light has faded outside the tent, replaced by the glare of electric lights. There's another face I don't recognise. It's a smiling face, and it comes with a touch to my arm, hands on my body, gentle and caring, kind. This time my surroundings spring into focus. The haze isn't cloud, it's plastic, sheets of it forming a square bubble around me. I'm not at home. Bubble City, I think. I shrink into the bed. Bubble City. Deb. Danger. I look back at the face. It's a full face. No yellow suit. No respirator. No impenetrable barrier between us. I open my mouth to ask how, but I can't form any words. My mind flits to Aidan and the vaccine. Did it work? Am I here because of him? And Dad? I try to ask, but I don't have the strength for any questions, only a handful of brief thoughts. Dad is okay. Mum and Alice could be here soon. The quarantine will be lifted soon. But Deb is dead, and Aidan will leave. It's not the thought I want to sleep on, but I can't stop myself from drifting away again. There is a new sensation in my arm now. It's not the same as the needles and the flow of medicine I'm accustomed to, and yet it's somehow familiar. I scrabble around in my memory, trying to name the feeling, but all I find is haze. I force my eyes open. The hazy bubble of plastic all around me filtering the light from the room beyond. I feel, rather than see, a dark shape beside me. It's the thing that's causing the sensation in my arm. I pull the bubble into focus, the layers of plastic becoming clear. The dark shape is a person, the nurse, standing by my side, her hand resting on my arm. There are no needles, just the warmth of her skin, a gossamer layer of glove between us, pressed against mine. It's the most wonderful sensation I've ever experienced. "Morning, Emmett," she says. "How are we feeling today?" I open my mouth to answer, but my parched lips feel as if they're glued together. I run my furred tongue over them and find my voice. It feels like weeks since I've used it. "Kay," I say. I'm aware of the smell of food, real food, not the fake stuff, and I realise I'm starving. "You need to try to eat something today," she says. "We need to build up your strength so we can get you out of here." "Elmington," I rasp. She nods and starts to rearrange me in the bed, her adept hands adjusting my body. She fiddles with the box on the side of my bed, and my upper body starts to rise. The pressure pulls away from my back as I'm tilted upwards, the fluids that have been pooling in me beginning to drain. I feel as if I've been freed from a heavy suit of armour. A light sparks in my brain, and then another, as I start to make connections again. If they're moving me to Elmington, I'm going to be okay. I try to picture myself in the grounds of the big house, the sun on my face and the smell of fresh, clean air in my nose, and I try to imagine what it will be like to be free again. It's been so long, it's hard to conjure those feelings. The nurse holds a small cup to my mouth, and the coolness of the rim sparks against my lips. She tilts it until water drips against my dry lips. It trickles into my mouth and rolls across my tongue. I swallow for what feels like the first time ever, as the cool rivulet trickles down my throat and caresses the inside of my stomach. I am alive. My mind gathers together snippets of memory. They are vague at first, dark and painful, but bit by bit I start to remember. I remember the pain. I remember the feel of Deb. I remember Aidan the last time I saw him, and I remember... "Dad," I say. "Where's my dad?" The nurse takes the cup away and makes a fuss of organising the tray of food. "Is he still here?" I ask again. She turns back and rests her hand on my arm again. The sensation no longer feels wonderful. Through her touch, she tells me everything I need to know. I'm sorry, and there is nothing we could do. All the platitudes of bad news in one simple gesture. "I'm sorry, Emmett," the nurse says, squeezing my hand. "Do you want me to stay with you for a while?" I shake my head, no. I want to see my dad. I want my mum to be here with me. I want my life to go back to normal, the way it used to be, back to when it was imperfect. I want to make sense of what she is telling me, that my dad is gone. That a person I've known since the first day of my life is no longer here. I can't grasp the idea that he no longer exists. I want to see him, I tell the nurse. Her mask of professionalism slips for just a second, enough for me to see all the reasons why I can't see him. But then she gives the slightest shake of her head. I'm sorry, Emmett, but he's already gone. Rage struggles to gain traction. I want to prove her wrong. I want to get up and check every bubble in this place until I find him, because he has to be here. My dad would never leave me. I push up from the bed, but the nurse puts her hand against my chest. It's a gentle movement, but it's more than I have the strength to fight against. And then another familiar sensation reaches my arm, and a river of warmth flows into me. This will help you rest, she says. I don't want to rest, I try to say, but I can't form the words. I want to feel the pain. I want the fact that my dad is gone to hurt more than anything I've ever felt before. I want to feel my insides ripped out and cast aside so I can live with the hole that's left behind. But instead, I feel the heat. As the bubble blurs back out of focus, I try to ask if anyone has talked to Mum. But finally, I feel nothing.
Welcome back. Way back in April, in the first 2 episodes of this season, I told you about the true story of the plague village of Eyam and what it's like today. In case you missed it, I'll post the link to my photo tour below. Eyam is a fascinating place to visit. It's a picturesque little village, quite ordinary in many ways, except for its tragic past. The row of cottages where the first plague victims died are still there with new modern-day inhabitants. The graves of some victims can be found in the churchyard or at spots outside the village. Even the house where the real Emmett Siddall lived is still home to one of the many families that have lived there in the last 350 years. Some direct descendants of plague victims and survivors still live in the village today, just as my fictional Em did. Many stories of the village during that time live on today. People who lived in the village during the plague lost many family members. One woman, Jane Hawksworth, reportedly lost 25 members of her immediate and extended family. Just outside the village, you can still find the graves of 7 members of the Hancock family. After the decision to quarantine Eyam, people in the village were instructed to bury their own dead to reduce the spread of the disease. Mrs. Hancock was the sole survivor of her family, being forced to dig the graves of her husband and 6 children before finally fleeing the village. From tragedy always comes opportunity for some, and Marshall Howe saw his opportunity in Eyam. Howe contracted the plague and survived, leading him to believe he would be immune. He used his immunity and offered his services as a gravedigger in the village, for a fee, of course. It said he made a tidy profit for his services, as well as making extra tips by stealing money and belongings from the dead. Despite handling the bodies of countless victims, Howe did not catch the plague again. However, he didn't escape unscathed. His wife and children all died from the plague. It's not clear if he passed the disease to them, even though he remained immune himself, but it's very likely that Marshall Howe was a superspreader of his time. You're probably familiar with the nursery rhyme Ring Around the Rosie. or its original English title, Ring-a-Ring-a-Roses. You might not know that the rhyme originates from plague times. Although many variations now exist, the most common English version translates like this. A ring-a-ring of roses describes the ring of red spots that were once the first symptoms of the disease. A pocketful of posies refers to the nosegays of petals and herbs that were reported to ward off the plague. A tissue comes from another plague symptom, sneezing. And we all fall down, I think, sadly, is self-explanatory. Kind of a morbid song for children when you look at it that way. We are less than a year into our own Great Plague, which I'm sure will prove to be an historic event, like the pandemics before it. I wonder what our plague stories will be. Until next week, stay safe. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Smallest Thing. To make sure you don't miss next week's episode, you can subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and more. If you'd like to support the show, please leave a review and share this series with others you think might enjoy it. If you're on Instagram, tag me there at LisaManterfield_, or follow me on Facebook at author Lisa Manterfield and Twitter at Lisa Manterfield. My newsletter subscribers are always the first to know about my news, events, upcoming releases, giveaways, and more. Sign up for monthly delivery at lisamanterfield.com/subscribe and get your complimentary copy of Love, Loss and Letting Go, 3 of my short stories. Thanks to Justin Joseph for producing and editing this show, and to Ketsa.uk for the music. That's all for this episode. Thanks for listening.